Hey guys, I'm your host, the J-Man. Welcome to my video, and today I want to present to you my follow-up on the MMA world, the MMA universe, and everything going on in mixed martial arts. Now, I haven't been talking about martial arts that much lately, or haven't been talking about MMA, because I'm starting to lose interest. I'm starting to lose a lot of interest. It's been disappointing me, even though the George St. Pierre fight recently, it was definitely worth watching. It was a good action-packed fight, but still pretty one-sided and predictable. Like, I knew that was going to happen. I knew Koscheck was going to get destroyed by St. Pierre, but it was still fun watching, of course. Not that I'm saying that seeing St. Pierre lose would have been more enjoyable and more entertaining for me. It wouldn't. A more challenging match for St. Pierre, less predictable fight would have been more enjoyable. But other than that, especially the UFC in general has been disappointing me just repeatedly. And without getting into the details of why, I just want to say that I'm not here to complain about it, and that's why I've been avoiding the MMA videos, because I don't want to talk about any of that, because it's just going to be me complaining, and I'm not here to complain. I'm not here to rain on anybody's parade. I want everybody to enjoy MMA, and I don't want to dishearten people who like MMA, or want people to think that I'm a hater, because really I'm not. But what I want to say in this video is that in order for me to get back into MMA and be really interested in it again, start talking about it more often, certain things need to happen, and I'm going to explain what needs to happen in order to get me back as a fan. Some big decisions need to be made. First and foremost, this whole thing with Anderson Silva. He is the middleweight champion. He's been the middleweight champion for a long time. He's super dominant at that weight. I've said it before in my other videos. The guy is too big to be fighting at 105 pounds, 185. Yes, he can make weight and still compete, but it's getting to the point where he's not being challenged. He's getting bored with his own fights. He's getting very, how should I say this? Very, it's kind of boring to watch his fights, even, because they're so predictable. He's got a reach advantage on everybody, and he's a better striker than like 90% of the guys in the middleweight division. Even though his most recent fight with Chael Sonnen was very challenging for him, I still believe that Anderson Silva should not be competing at 185 pounds. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because in the fight against Damian Maia, he showed that he was not interested in the fight. It was boring to him. It wasn't challenging to him. So he had to act out outlandishly. And other than Chael Sonnen, who else is there in the middleweight division to really challenge him? I don't think there's anybody. It seems like the only thing he struggles with is wrestling, and Chael Sonnen was pretty much the best wrestler in the 185-pound division, in my opinion. Dan Henderson was the guy at one point. Everybody thought he would be the biggest rival to Silva, and that if he got a rematch, that would be really worth watching. But obviously Henderson got outed, and now we're at this standstill, this lockdown on the middleweight division, where nobody can really shine or compete, because he's just hogging the title. He's holding on to the title. He needs to give it up. He's been proven that he can compete very well and just fine at 205 pounds. If a champion becomes so dominant at that weight class, you kind of have to take control and say, it's time for you to either move up or get out. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, because he's such a big star the UFC has. They don't want to kick him out. They don't want to, fire him. But hey, if you can't compete in the weight class you're supposed to compete in, I'm sorry. some people are definitely going to disagree with me and say that it would be wrong to strip him of his title, but I don't see any other way for the UFC to survive, or the middleweight division to survive, unless he drops that belt. Wanderlei Silva is not going to fight Anderson Silva because they have a pact together. They're friends. They train together. And if Wanderlei Silva ever becomes top ranked or defeats some of the other guys that are #1 contenders, it's just all for nothing because he's not going to turn around and fight Anderson. So really, Anderson has got to go up to 205 pounds, or the UFC should do one other thing. They have one other alternative, and that is to create an in-between division, in between 185 and 205 would be maybe like 195. And I think we've seen Rich Franklin compete at that weight before, and we've seen Wanderlei Silva compete at that weight. So it's not completely illogical. So 195 would be pretty good for Silva. If that got straightened out, if they had the middleweight title up for grabs, that would do a whole lot for me, build my interest back. What else can be done? George St. Pierre, here's another example. He has cleaned out his division pretty much. I mean, there are a few guys that could maybe possibly give him some trouble, but for the most part, St. Pierre has wiped everybody out. What I'm looking at is John Fitch is the #1 contender, pretty much, just based on his rank and how many other guys he's beaten, and even his skill level. John Fitch should probably move to middleweight. That is, if St. Pierre stays the champion at welterweight. St. Pierre can still have some good fights left. I mean, there can still be some reputable, entertaining matches to put St. Pierre up against other guys, other contenders, such as Jake Shields. I mean, he's the biggest, most likely contender right now. Who else? We've also got Carlos Condit, who looked really, really impressive against Dan Hardy. So you've got those guys. Yes, they need to improve quite a bit more before they can fight St. Pierre, but still, I mean, that's an interesting title match in the future. So the thing is, though, with John Fitch, he's just going to keep beating everybody in welterweight and earn that #1 spot and hold on to it, but not be good enough to actually beat St. Pierre again. So I think for his own best interest, Fitch really needs to move up to middleweight. Okay, now that I've said that, what else needs to happen? Let's see here. With Randy Couture basically retired, Chuck Liddell retired, Tito Ortiz over the hill, the UFC is losing a lot of star power. So what they basically really need to do in order to get the star power back is to start promoting these young guys, these up-and-comers, especially anyone who competed on the Ultimate Fighter, because they already have a lot of exposure. They need to put them on the fast track to winning. Put them up against guys that make them look good. Put them up against people they can beat. And, just let them go on a winning streak. And that's how you build stars, because you need stars now, because you're losing a lot of your appeal factor when these recognizable names that always sell the pay-per-view are kind of fading out. Even Little Nogueira, he's been losing. I mean, he lost his most recent fight, but other than that, I don't know how much more he has left in him. And even Big Nog, who hasn't competed in a long time, has lost a few. So, yeah, I hope the UFC gets back on track. I hope MMA gets back on track. Strikeforce, same thing, pretty much. The heavyweight division is a mess now that Fedor lost to Verdum, and Verdum is probably not going to rematch Fedor before he fights Overeem. So it's like, what if Verdum ends up beating Overeem, and then Fedor turns around and beats back Verdum. It's all just a big confusion about who's really the champion. You know, you've got those two belts. You got the WAMA belt, which is supposedly held by Verdum now, and then you've got the Strikeforce heavyweight belt, which is held by Overeem. And who's Overeem going to fight next? It really should be, Fedor, because Verdum is already the WAMA champion. And then you've got Bigfoot Silva, who's a top contender now. He's already been beaten by Verdum recently. So the only logical explanation would be to put Silva up against Overeem for the title. And then where does that leave Fedor? Fedor should just basically be waiting for his rematch against Verdum. That needs to happen. Before Fedor fights anybody else, he should be up against Verdum in a rematch. I want to see that happen. I don't want to see Fedor beat anybody else before he rematches Verdum. I don't want to see Verdum fight anybody else before he rematches Fedor. But Overeem versus Antonio Bigfoot Silva, I think that would be a great match. Even if Overeem isn't interested in fighting him, I think he should be mandated to defend the title against this guy. He's been looking real good lately. He just beat Mike Kyle, who's champion, the heavyweight champion of King of the Cage. Mike Kyle, he even holds a victory over Fei Zhao, the light heavyweight champion. So Antonio Silva looks really good, and I think it would be a great contest to put him against Overeem, kind of match beast against beast, and see who comes out the victor. That's what I need to happen in order for me to really get on the ball with Strikeforce. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately. I have a lot of interest in Overeem because he won the K1 GP heavyweight final, so he's the new champion of that. And he just proved himself to be a really dangerous striker. So I want to see Overeem put up against somebody who can, give him a run for his money, and that would be Silva, Bigfoot Silva. All right, so that's pretty much all I have to say about this. Thanks for watching my video. Please comment, and I'll see you next time.